Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Brought to you once again by On Fire Ministries, in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio today. The largest Chinese exercise around Taiwan since 1996. Hundreds of deadly virus samples go missing from a lab. And also Syrian jihadis eye Israel now. And also today we have Jack Decker, an intelligence analyst, and part of a tabletop exercise you're going to want to hear about, and you probably have never heard this anywhere else. Here at Patriot Radio, we want to bring you not just the news behind the news, we want to bring it to you before anyone else so that you and your family can be prepared the times that are already upon us and the times ahead, but no fear. We were made for this. Today, if you have a prayer request, we want to engage with you. We want to talk with you. We want to pray with you. So if you have a prayer request, please click on the QR code there. We have people that are willing and ready to pray with you through whatever you're going through in life, and that we're doing that together as Christian brothers and sisters. Also, you can follow us for real-time intelligence analysis and breaking news on Telegram at Patriot Radio US. We have a lot going on, especially on that channel right now, but it saves you time because you don't need to go scroll somewhere else. You've got it all curated for you from the best open source intelligence sources and analysts in the world. And you can follow us on and subscribe to us, please, on Rumble. But we want to thank you and welcome all of our Patriot TV audience here to Patriot Radio. It's been amazing having you all. And just the comments that are coming in from around the United States. Thank you so much for watching and sharing this with your friends and family. We're broadcasting 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Saturday and every Sunday. This episode you're going to want to bookmark. We had Jack Decker on back in 2020, and he predicted what happened with the election then and what was going to be the aftermath. So you're going to really want to listen to this because it was something that was discussed in a tabletop exercise in 2014. Yes, a lot of this is planned. And now, an encouraging word from the Word. Coming to us from 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 2. If you've never heard this before, I hope this encourages you today and that you bookmark this, maybe write it, put it up on your mirror. And here's what the Word of God says. And he says, "At a favorable time I listened to you, and on a day of salvation, I helped you. Behold, now is a favorable time. Behold, now is a day of salvation. Today, everyone, is the greatest day. Today is the day of salvation. Today is the good and favorable day of the Lord." Do you really believe that? Some of you woke up this morning, and I don't think you did. But today is the greatest day. And every morning that you wake up, having that pinned on your mirror may be exactly what you need. Be encouraged for your day. And that brings us now to your daily intelligence briefing. Coming to us from the globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
AI mega data centers are sending global electricity demand soaring. Why do they need all of these data centers? Here's why: because they're trying to make a digital self with thousands, literally thousands of data points on every single human being. And to do so, they need very large data centers to house that data. Now, also, AI is part of this as well. But the fact of the matter is, the rapid growth of data centers to support AI and increasing global electricity demand means we actually have to face some realities. And one of those realities is that wind and solar has failed. And they are going to have to acknowledge the importance of hydroelectric dams and nuclear power, specifically small modular nuclear reactors, which you've heard me talk about on this show before. Also, it should highlight an issue with privacy. If they have that many data points on you, they are fulfilling their dream of activity-based intelligence, because that's what it was originally called, where they will, well, supposedly know you better than you know yourself. And introduce specific things based on those characteristics to get you to behave in a certain way, to manipulate your behavior. Now, it's always under the guise of, well, we want to help people. We want to provide help so they buy what they want to buy. And this is really about making it easier for people and making people live life better. Except the fact that they want to manipulate how you vote. They want to manipulate what you read. They want to manipulate your entertainment so that you are quite literally stuck, almost like the movie Surrogates portrayed Bruce Willis, in a pod, not ever really stepping outside of your house. And of course, if you can't really work outside of your house, everything's done by robots, then of course you'll need a universal basic income. And you will only get your universal basic income if you fall in line with the social credit scores and you make yourself known as a compliant person. Let me just say that this robs us of our humanity. And from a biblical perspective, this has always been the enemy's plan. The enemy's plan has always been to cut off relationship, to cut off contact, to isolate people. And as Christians, we need to understand that while AI does have some benefits, that we need to start addressing some of the people that are behind this and how they might abuse it. In one of our upcoming episodes, we're going to have Patrick Wood, who is one of the foremost experts on technocracy and just this whole global plan behind this, if you've never heard of it. But go to Technocracy News if you don't know about it already, because there's a lot written about this. And we're coming to a point here just in the next 3 years where this is going to become an issue of which direction are we going to go and what does it mean to be truly human. That brings us now to the China front. Hundreds of deadly virus samples have gone missing from a lab in Australia. And interestingly enough, this lab in Queensland just called this a major biosecurity breach, and an investigation has been launched into the, quote, administrative blunder, with reassurances, of course, that there's no risk to the public, except that if they've gone missing, is it an administrative blunder? Or did they actually go missing and somebody tried to cover it up? We'll keep our eyes on this here in the next few weeks, see what comes out of it. The Chinese are practicing a blockade of Taiwan, and they are also setting up a naval wall. This is the largest military exercise since 1996. You can see from the map they're building 2 walls around Taiwan, one in the first and one in the second island chains. And this means that, and practically speaking, that 47 military planes and dozens of Chinese naval ships in the last 24 hours have surrounded Taiwan. Now, what they're trying to do is get everyone used to the blockade and to keep building so people get used to the blockade. But this maritime deployment, well, it's the largest since the 1990s, so something is definitely up. And one of the indicators of that was this weird thing that happened in South Korea a couple weeks ago. I think we're in a short term. I'm talking like in the next year or way sooner than that China is going to make some kind of move on Taiwan They're obviously continuing to ramp up these exercises with more and more troops, assets, airplanes. We're going to keep our eyes on that. But a war in the South China Sea very likely means that there would be an invasion by North Korea into South Korea, which is one of the reasons I think that they have sent their troops to Ukraine to get them battle hardened and also work out some of the kinks in their artillery and bring them back for this invasion. So, and people say, it's never going to happen. Yeah, they've been planning this for a long time. And the Chinese and the North Koreans have had a strategic plan that's 50 years, 100 years into the future. We always seem to be reacting in the West. However, it is good news that South Korea started deploying its new laser weapon. The laser-based anti-aircraft weapon Block 1 has been deployed with frontline units and on top of tall buildings in Seoul. Also, a Block 2 version on a mobile chassis is being developed. That is expected to be deployed here very soon. This is the future of anti-drone warfare, but also anti-artillery and short-range rocket and missile defense warfare. And the reason also from a logistics standpoint is because it is way cheaper to fire a laser because it's only the power to shoot the laser versus to make all these very expensive anti-aircraft missiles. So, and actually ends up being cheaper than drones in most cases. This is the future of warfare, and it is no coincidence that as the Chinese military deployed around Taiwan, that South Korea is unveiling this right now. Vietnam, quiet, firm, and resilient in the South China Sea. While media attention focuses on China and the Philippines' heated dispute, which continues, Vietnam is quietly building up its sovereign claims in the South China Sea. So we are also seeing China versus Vietnam. If you don't understand the age-old adversarial nature of their relationship, then you're going to miss this. This is one of those X factors in the South China Sea that we need to keep our eyes on here in the next couple of years as well. And that brings us to the Middle East front. Over the last 72 hours, Israel has launched a massive attack on Syria and is destroying literally the entire Syrian Navy, all of its air force, its helicopter force, its ammunition depots, and then mysteriously a couple of other things have happened. It's chemical weapons depots. I'm going to get to that here in a second. But a report came out earlier today, haven't heard a lot of people talking about that indicate the assassination of Syrian chemistry scientist Hamdi Ismail at his home in Damascus. It remains unclear who is behind it, but it sounds like their chemical weapons program is being covered up or taken out, or both. What most people don't know is that Iraq did, in fact, have chemical weapons. I have heard so many people who have no firsthand personal knowledge of this. This was acknowledged by the New York Times in a couple of articles, and it came out, was declassified because of veterans' claims, because of their exposure to toxic gas. There were chemical weapons in Iraq. A lot of them, actually. Some of them were ferried to the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon and then into Syria as well. So it's interesting that now Israel is acknowledging there are chemical weapons stores in Syria. This chemistry scientist is suddenly assassinated, and they're taking them out as fast as they can to deprive the jihadis in Syria of access to the Syrian Navy, access to the Syrian weapons, access to the Syrian weapons of mass destruction. Syria's new government, though, is trying to put on a face that is non-jihadi. But what you're going to see here in the next few minutes is the news behind the news and the story behind the story. Syria's new government announces it will move away from state-controlled economy to a free market model to attract investment. But let's dig in just a little bit deeper. The new Syrian Prime Minister, Mohammed al-Bashir, is sitting next to two flags. One, most people have recognized as the new Syrian flag, but right next to that is the jihadi flag. Also, jihadi rebels Memory, I love Memory. If you don't know this media outlet, please take a look at it. Memory.org does a great job. Memory has the Islamist militants in Damascus declaring, quote, they will enter the Al-Aqsa Mosque. In other words, they will invade Jerusalem. And they will also invade the Prophet's Mosque in Medina and the Kaaba in Mecca. In other words, they will invade Saudi Arabia. Which is going to explain something here I'm going to talk about in a couple of minutes. This is why Israel has invaded Syria into the buffer zone. Because these jihadis were originally ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and now they're putting on a face for the West. Well, their plans remain very clear. To take over Saudi Arabia and to take over Israel. This is why Erdogan in Turkey is backing them. Because if you don't know your history, you won't understand this. The Saudis invaded, took over the Kaaba in Mecca, took over the mosque, the Prophet's Mosque in Medina, and kicked out the Hashemite kingdom, which is now known today as Jordan. This is why Jordan's aligning with Turkey. Erdogan, though, his history and the history of Turkey is the Ottoman Empire, which originally was in control of those things, those holy sites. That's what Erdogan's doing, is trying to reestablish the caliphate. That's why he backed these Syrian rebels linked to ISIS, linked to Al-Qaeda, because the Muslim Brotherhood is based out of Syria right now, which is the spawn, which is spawning these organizations from that place, and they're going to, and they mean this, try to invade Israel and try to invade Saudi Arabia. So we're just going to take them at their word. That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying publicly. Sam Faddis agrees nothing is over in Syria. Jihad against the Kurds is next. So not only Saudi Arabia, not only Israel, but also the Kurds, Turkish President Erdogan, we reject Syria's division or renewed conflict on its territory. Any attack on Syria's stability or territorial integrity will face resistance from the Syrian people and us. We hope that the PKK and YPG terrorists in Syria are crushed soon. In other words, the Kurds. Now, they're Sunni as well, but they're a challenge to his power and the new caliphate. Putin advisor Alexander Dugin spoke up recently and said this, quote, Syria was a trap for Erdogan. He has made a strategic mistake. He has betrayed Russia. He has betrayed Iran. He is doomed. Now the end of Kemal's Turkey has begun. We have supported you until now. From now on, you'll repent. Very clearly where the Russians are standing in regards to Turkey right now. You don't know who Alexander Dugin is. He is not just Putin's advisor, but he's kind of an intellectual or a thought leader for Russia. The Kurdish-led SDF forces have left the city of Deir ez-Zor after an SNA offensive. That's the jihadi rebels, which resulted in the SDF's local Sunni Arab allies switching sides. So the Kurdish allies have now switched side to the jihadis, and I suspect there is going to be more civil war between the Kurds and the SNA here in the near future. Also, Ukrainian intelligence service says that Russia is actively retreating its key holdings in Syria. Some of Russian troops have been cut off in pockets in Syria and left behind. We're going to get to that here in a second. But heavy lifters are evacuating the airbase in northern Syria while multiple Russian warships are heading towards Tartus to begin a sea lift operation. The Russians are, in fact, starting to get nervous because Syria was a refueling and logistics point that the Russians used for power projection into Africa. So now we're going to look out here 6 months to a year. We're going to start seeing some of the things that Russia has been trying to do in Africa begin to collapse as well. This is the reality on the ground, folks. That was a key logistics point for them, and they have now lost it. Reports of Kurdish forces have blocked the movement of a Russian convoy toward their base in Saran. Here's the footage from it, but these Russian pockets have literally been left behind. I would not be surprised if there is some kind of Russian airborne attempt to get to some of these pockets or to have some kind of a breakthrough for those Russian forces to get out. And also, based on Israeli media, multiple Israeli units have come into Syria. I want to highlight a few things. In the north there, Mount Hermon is the most strategic physical asset, but also a spiritual strategic asset. The Mountain of Oath, what many people believe theologically was the mountain that Satan and his fallen angels descended on and took an oath. There's actually a stela up there as a memorial regarding that oath. It was taken down in the 1860s, put in a British museum. We can bring that map back up very quickly. Mount Hermon, there in the north, is then the highest vantage point. Israel has captured that and is moving into the buffer zone there in the Golan Heights and is digging gigantic trenches and beginning to harden that area. The reason? Well, because the jihadis have said they want to invade Israel, and therefore the Israelis are putting up a defensive line in that area. They will not give up the Golan Heights, according to Benjamin Netanyahu in a recent statement. But just so you understand it tactically, Mount Hermon, a very strategic vantage point and a very key tactical vantage point, and then also capturing those key settlements. So it provides a line of defense. Now, the Golan Heights are a height as well. That means they are a tactical and strategic vantage point for the Israeli military as well. So that's it in just a quick analysis of what's happening there in Syria. Also, the famous Sidnaya prison in Syria was left. All the guards left, but the prisoners were still there, and there were some hopes that the lower levels of that prison where people thought there were thousands of people potentially housed, they were going to be rescued. But in fact, what they ended up finding was rooms full of discarded shoes and other items of clothing. It looks like, in fact, that prison was a death chamber and a death camp. Some heartbreaking stories out of that. Absolutely heartbreaking stories. That brings us now to the Russia front. Here are the list of countries in Europe that have now announced they are freezing all Syrian asylum applications. Some have also indicated they're going to send Syrian refugees back. From Germany to Greece, Belgium to Czechia, Switzerland to the Netherlands, and Croatia in between. Even the UK has figured out perhaps they should have a different immigration policy. Also, sky-high electricity prices in southern Sweden due to the former regime in Germany under Angela Merkel dismantling all nuclear power plants in Germany. Electricity prices in southern Sweden will be 167 times more expensive than in the northern parts of Sweden tomorrow. The United States needs to learn this lesson. We need to build small modular nuclear power plants, get past this irrational fear of nuclear power, not take out any dams, but in fact, make sure those dams will never be even talked about again as being removed, so that the United States does not have rolling brownouts in the future and grid instability. This was warned about 10 years ago. Sweden now, an object lesson. Also, Turkey and Russia have clashed geopolitically via proxy 3 times in recent years, and I don't think most people understand this. Russians now very clearly breaking their relationship with Turkey. Libya, the Nagorno-Karabakh, and in Syria, Turkey is 3-0. Again, why is Recep Erdogan in all those areas? Well, because if you understand history and the fact that he turned the Hagia Sophia, a former Christian church, then a mosque, after Constantinople was sacked in 1453, he is turning what then was a museum after the World War I in 1917. It's turned into a museum that would never be used as a mosque again. He's turned it back into a mosque because it is only there the next caliph can be ordained. Recep Erdogan is trying to establish a new caliphate. By the way, for Christians, the moment the caliphate is declared, there is war against Christians around the world immediately. And you're like, well, there's some already going on. Immediately there's war across the world. And that brings us to billionaire Tory donor Nick Candy has defected to Reform UK. I will raise more money from Reform than any political party in the UK has ever raised. In other words, Nigel Farage is going to be PM, so you have kind of an Elon Musk in the UK. And now, a word from our sponsors when we come back from the break, the South America front, and also what's happening here in the United States. And we'll hear in the Northwest an interesting exchange with former Governor Inslee.
Hey folks, it's your buddy John Rich here and co-founder of Old Glory Bank. Let me ask you a question. Why would you trust your banking with people that hate you? Well, you shouldn't. We're building a freedom economy, and now we have a pro-America bank. It's called Old Glory Bank. Check it out at oldglorybank.com and open yourself an account today.
Old Glory Bank is a full-service, FDIC-insured online bank with business and consumer banking and customers in all 50 states. It takes just 8 minutes to open an account at oldglorybank.com.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to the Patriot.tv store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the Donor Deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your Donor Deck now.
The South America front. Brazilian President Lula in intensive care after brain surgery. There could be a shakeup in that country here very, very soon. Also, Paraguay faces China a clear message of sovereignty amid diplomatic pressure. The Chinese tried to strong-arm Paraguay, but Paraguay is standing for freedom. And its president right now doing a great job of understanding that freedom was contagious and joining forces, as it were, with Javier Milei in Argentina right next door. This is an interesting thing there. The Paraguayan government declared Chinese diplomat Zhu Wei persona non grata. In other words, they ordered his expulsion following accusations of interference in the country's internal affairs. The incident underscores the growing geopolitical tensions in Hispanic America, where China's influence continues to rise. Zhu Wei was accused of publicly advocating for Paraguay to sever ties with Taiwan and establish relationship with China. So fascinating. Some backbone down there in South America right now, and that is growing. So you got three main countries that are doing a fantastic job. Javier Milei, the president of Paraguay, and also Nayib Bukele coming together and showing what freedom really should look like. Also, this just came in, so this is kind of breaking news, but it deals with Christians. I'm going to pull this up right now. Christian activists in Syria have launched a campaign demanding the protection of Christian rights in the country. They called on Christian religious leaders to intervene and exert pressure on the new authorities to ensure their rights are safeguarded. This is after reports of kidnappings and some killings of Christians that have gone on by jihadi forces there in Syria. That brings us now to the National Front. Just in, the full manifesto of alleged United Healthcare CEO assassin Luigi Mangione are revealed. Interesting that it was said that, law enforcement, first of all, confirmed the authenticity of the manifesto, but the words in the document align perfectly with previous reporting. Mangione admits being responsible for Thompson's death and that he acted alone, and then he apologized for any strife or traumas, but it had to be done. Quote, these parasites had it coming, end quote. Mangione then rails against the healthcare industry, focusing primarily on United Healthcare. His rant reads like a Bernie Sanders speech on the Senate floor, end quote, from the Gateway Pundit. Here's what's interesting. We talked about this months ago, right here on Patriot Radio, that the left would begin targeting persons and property for specific kinetic attack. In other words, intentionally doing this. What I find interesting is that on the heels of this, BLM leader of Greater New York, Hawk Newsom, stated after the trial that it's time for, quote, black vigilantes to step up following the verdict in Daniel Penny's acquittal. He threatened Penny in the courtroom, telling him, quote, "It's a small world, buddy," end quote. So you have some very violent rhetoric coming out of the left right now. And as we've talked about, there's very likely to be targeting of individuals, leaders, and property of Christians and patriots in the United States of America. Moving to Trump's new pick for the Department of Education, Linda McMahon, she said, quote, "The administration will return control of education to the states," end quote. That is music, and should be music to everyone's ears. Also, from Gateway Pundit, Fulton County Superior Court finds Fannie Willis in default for refusing to hand over documents in an open records lawsuit. So fascinating how there's always an attempt to hide at least the truth. In this case, records. From WorldNet Daily, the walls are closing in. Researcher who hid results of transgender. Notice how this is a theme right now. Transgender study now in serious hot water. The behavior of a researcher funded by the National Institute of Health in hiding the results of a long-running study on the effects of puberty blockers on children already has been called out by U.S. Senator Marco Rubio from Florida. Despite the Obama administration's decision to support Olson Kennedy's study more than 9 years ago, the findings have yet to be released, allegedly out of fear of political repercussions. Gotta wonder what might be in that study. Also, hours after a withering letter from Grassley, FBI Director Christopher Wray has announced he's going to resign. This is fascinating because it sounded like they were going to try to make it a fight for him to stay, as if he had some kind of, that Chris Wray had some kind of right to stay there. Grassley's letter to Wray, putting the FBI director and on notice and blasting him for his actions during his 6.5 years, on the job, made it clear that the GOP wanted somebody else and wasn't going to dissuade Trump from firing Wray, with 3 years and change left in his tenure. Cited a list of failures, so it looks like Chris Wray is out and Kash Patel is in. Now, talking quickly about nuclear reactors, Nuclear 101, micro reactors are factory-built plug-and-play reactors. They can be used on military bases for disaster recovery efforts or in remote locations where traditional infrastructure doesn't exist. Now, here's what's so interesting. Traditional infrastructure are power lines. What the bigger reactors, the small modular nuclear reactors, can be put outside of a major industrial area. These micro reactors can be put next to a house, or you could use a hydrogen fuel cell technology. So therefore, you have no power lines. That means you won't have outages in massive weather events, or it will be very limited. Extraordinary technology right now. So check it out if you have not. It's a great education. Also, China's ban on rare earth exports may be backfiring. Good news for a huge project in Wyoming. Most people didn't know that the United States was one of the largest, if not the largest, exporter of rare earth minerals previously to China's ascendancy. And it looks like even China is helping to make America great again. That brings us now to the regional front. Now, I don't normally do this, but I wanted to highlight this for everybody in the United States. Everybody watching this episode up here in the Pacific Northwest, you've got very conservative Idaho right next to very, very liberal Washington. And so there's refugees, political refugees that go from Washington into Idaho. But it was interesting that there was a big rumor recently about Governor Jay Inslee moving to North Idaho. And so Governor Inslee responded saying that disreputable right-wing media don't usually get under my skin, but that is the case when they suggest I have plans to move to Idaho after I leave office. Washington already has the best potatoes. I love this. Something's going on with this, and it's really interesting when folks like him get called out, and this is kind of the response. I hope that kind of at least puts a smile on your face today, perhaps after all. And to the great joy of North Idaho, Governor Inslee may not be going there permanently. And that is the briefing. Remember, the antidote to dependency and socialism is to be a God-fearing, self-reliant, freedom-loving American. Thank you to everybody following us. Remember, you can follow us on Rumble and also on Telegram for real-time intelligence analysis and breaking news. And with that, we're going to go to a word from our sponsors. And when we come back, Jack Decker.
Hey, Patriot TV fans, feel like there's nothing on the radio for like-minded, intelligent people like yourself? Well, great news. Now you can stream Patriot TV on TuneIn during your drive to or from work. Whether you're stuck in traffic or cruising down the highway, you can catch every conversation from your favorite show hosts right in your car. No more mindless jibber-jabber. Tune in 24/7 on the road, at the gym, or wherever you are. Download the free TuneIn app now on Apple, Android, or your computer and never miss a beat. Patriot TV, now on TuneIn.
Now we have it. Kingdom Crunch.
It's important to start breakfast off with a power-packed punch. You want a complete amino acid score, good protein. If you turn the label over and look at the back of the box, there is no added sugars in either one of these flavors, either peanut butter or acai bowl.
Peanut butter has 11 grams of high-quality protein. Acai bowl has 8. Peanut butter has 11 grams of carbohydrate, acai bowl 12, and both of them have a good solid fat content at 6 grams. Very filling, very healthy.
You will be fueling yourself with high quality fuel, starting off the day right. You can even use Kingdom Crunch as a snack in the middle of the day if you just have a craving and you want to eat something that is good for you, it has a crunch, and doesn't have a lot of calories.
There you go. Diabetic friendly, keto friendly, paleo friendly, Kingdom Crunch, and
child friendly.
And now our guest today, Jack Decker, who was involved in the intelligence community for years. Most importantly, did a tabletop exercise way back in the day that was, well, very predictive of the direction of our country. Jack, it is great to have you back on Patriot Radio again.
Sir, it's a pleasure to be here, and God bless you for the work that you do, for getting this news out, for getting truth out to the American people.
Well, really appreciate it. So for the listeners and those brand new folks on Patriot TV that have never heard your story, talk a little bit about the tabletop exercise, kind of what came out of that, and then we'll get into the current application.
Roger that. Back before I left government service, I know you're familiar with the GS scale. I was assigned a GS-15 slot as an intelligence analyst, and I was invited to participate in a tabletop exercise of what would initiate a domestic insurgency in the United States and the most likely scenarios that would happen as that played out over time. And
so what were the results of that? Yeah.
At the end of the day, the Patriots, the conservatives, the right side of things, however, whatever terminology, you would like to use, wound up coming out victorious. There's several reasons for that. Most people inherently know right from wrong to start off with. The second thing being that while the left uses kind of violence like a thermostat, they'll turn it up and down depending on what the situation requires at the time. Everything, from blocking a street and preventing people from going to work, all the way up to we've seen assassination of a major political figure. It's by the grace of God that President Trump is alive today. The right, the conservatives, the patriots, we're law abiding by nature. We want to follow the rules. We want, society to be ordered, for there to be sense in our lives. So for us, violence is that on and off switch. We want that switch to be off. We don't want any kind of disruption in our lives. We don't want to leave our lives behind and pick up that rifle and go out and go to work. So when that switch gets flipped on, that switch doesn't go off until matters are settled. There's no turning it back. Second reason was in the election map from this last election tells the entire story.
Right.
Little islands surrounded by seas of red. And those little islands of blue essentially don't produce anything. You can say all you want, New York City produces this, or, Los Angeles produces that. You can't eat a stock option or a 2-hour major motion picture. So when these scenarios started playing out, those little blue islands got isolated. They got cut off. The majority of military and law enforcement either said, you made your own bed, you can go ahead and lay in it, or actively provided assistance. And that, I think, one of the core things that came out of that sand table exercise was the realization that these progressives, socialists, again, whatever terminology you wish to use, whatever's trendy nowadays, they live in a little bubble where they honestly believe that the military, the law enforcement, they are all on board with, and as time has progressed, this sand table exercise happened 13, 14 years ago. What they are trying to do is destroy Western civilization, to completely and utterly deconstruct it. So when they keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and they push a little bit too far, that's when the pushback starts. And the normal people of this country, that pushback is going to be exponentially greater than anything that these leftists have seen. And that's what our assessment was, similar to when President Trump has said he was looking at designating Mexican drug cartels as terrorist organizations and sending tier 1 units after them. It's easy to be a tough guy when you've got an AK and the person you're terrorizing, is cowering in the street unarmed.
Right.
It's completely different when you have people who have spent their entire lives perfecting the application of violence come looking for you. And the assessment was the same thing would happen here in the United States.
So last time I had you on the show, we talked about, the threat to leaders in the Patriot movement, Christian leaders, but also people like President Trump. And then that actually ended up happening where a couple of somebodies, and probably more than we even know, attempted to take his life. Now that he's won the election, is he still in danger, or is he in greater danger between now and the date of inauguration? Because there is such a push by the left to try to provoke something here in the United States.
I would assess that the danger is actually greater. And the reason being isn't so much the threat from the outside. The threat comes from the inside. You will hear the left dismiss the concept of the deep state or call it a conspiracy theory. And having been part of it, what the deep state is, or what it refers to, are essentially unelected bureaucrats who for decades have had the power. I don't want to say of God because that's blasphemous, but they have unlimited power within the government. You see it with ATF saying that these 80% receiver things now are completed firearms. They rule by executive fiat. They make these rulings, they have the force of law, and they become, in their own minds, essentially false gods. They think they hold the power of life and death over everyone around them. And we saw with the assassination attempt, where I'm not even going to name that individual, but he got off multiple shots, wound up killing a fine human being, a fine, upstanding, heroic, patriotic human being. They wounded President Trump. And again, by the grace of God, this man took a shot from 130, 140 meters. President Trump should be dead today. He should be dead. And the reason that happened isn't because the Secret Service they did not put that man on that rooftop with that rifle, but they allowed that man on that rooftop with a rifle. Any rookie cop could look and say, wow, there's a semi-concealed elevated shooting position less than 150 meters from the podium. To keep an eye on it. Advanced teams in front of the president typically get there 48 to 72 hours before to coordinate coverage. None of that was done. It was the most haphazard, sloppy job I have ever seen. And, again, in Iraq, you had personal security details out running the roads. There were, 22, 23-year-old kids just out of the Army that were running protective details 1,000 times better than the Secret Service did that day. And, I listened to the testimony, I watched all of it. There is nothing in the world that can convince me that they did not allow that to happen in the hopes that President Trump would die.
When we come back from the break, Jack Decker, we're going to talk about what should Trump be doing right now to eliminate this threat to Western civilization.
Attention patriotic businesses. Do you want to see your sales skyrocket by selling your products or services to like-minded patriots? Well, if you're an advertiser who embodies the timeless principles of freedom, liberty, and patriotism, look no further than Patriot TV. Our viewers are responsive, economically active patriots who are committed to supporting businesses like yours that align with their values. For more information on advertising on America's new network of proud American businesses, email us at advertise@patriot.tv.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
If I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's filling up more energy, more get up and go. And it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
And we're back with Jack Decker, former intelligence analyst, part of a tabletop exercise over 3 election cycles ago about what was going to happen and what the left was going to try to provoke here in the United States of America. Well, now that we're through the election, Jack, what is your message to President Trump? What should he be doing right now to eliminate this threat to Western civilization and the destruction of our way of life?
I wouldn't change a single thing that he's done. There are times when I disagreed with President Trump during his tenure. There are times that I absolutely loved what he did, but what he is doing now, for existence, Kash Patel as the FBI director.
Amen.
With the man, go in, clean house. The FBI is supposed to be a law enforcement agency, the premier law enforcement agency of the United States of America. In 2016, they were used as a political tool of the left to spy on a presidential campaign. They produced that ridiculous Steele dossier that everyone knew was false. During the next election cycle, when President Trump, and I don't want to say he lost to Biden, but Biden got more votes than President Trump. The FBI was sending agents to various social media companies, various news organizations, knowing full well that the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop were 110% factually accurate, and ordering those, or shouldn't say ordering, strongly suggesting that any articles relating to that laptop would be considered to be disinformation. And I would like to say that the majority of the field agents who were out there, who are doing the work, catching the bad guys, they aren't part of, I hate saying globalist conspiracy, because I mean, it sounds like really tinfoil hatty, but that's what these people are. They're globalists. They don't believe in national sovereignty. They have weaponized and indoctrinated children going through school, going through college, going to these Ivy League schools, who wind up getting these positions, who rise to these positions of power. They are the ones that are corrupted. They are the ones who think that their will should triumph over the will of the majority of American people. The guys who are out there, doing a job, who are catching the bank robbers, who are catching the serial killers, they're solid dudes. They are solid dudes. They are 110% patriots. They're out there keeping people safe. When you start getting up into the upper echelons, that's where you start having the corruption. Power corrupts. These people begin to think that they're above the law, and they start acting like they're above the law. A good case in point was during Trump's tenure, that slug Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who decided, my opinion is what matters on foreign policy, not the chief executive. President Trump in that case showed far more mercy than I would have, because I would have stripped him of his commission then and there, and he would have been out looking for a job with a dishonorable discharge. That's the kind of people that President Trump and the people that he picks for his cabinet need to literally they no longer need to be in government service. The 51 former intelligence officials who signed off, they all need to be stripped of their security clearance. They have proven that they are disloyal political hacks, and their loyalty does not lie with the United States of America. I'm not saying that they don't have a right to speak out if they want to criticize something that President Trump did, but to blatantly lie and mislead the American people for the political benefit of globalists, no, they do not need a security clearance, and nobody with more higher brain power than an iguana with an open skull fracture should be listening to them.
Well said. Jack, in 2 minutes, what happens in the next 90 days? What are you seeing?
I hate saying I don't know, but we are living in such chaotic times right now, sir. I pray to God that President Trump takes office. I pray to God that his cabinet is strong, that they go in there, they clean house, and they restore the republic to what it should be. And that is what every good Christian American should be praying for, is a restoration of the republic.
Amen. And that we don't get drug into World War III before January 20th.
They are doing their best. They are doing their best. Hearing that we are not only programming Ukrainian long-range missiles to go into Russia, but providing targeting information, it's absolutely disgusting.
Poking the bear. I mean, that's what's happening. Jack Decker, I really want to thank you for coming on. I know sometimes it's a little bit of a chore to even come on the radio and on TV with us, but I really appreciate your heart for this great country, your service for this great country, and thank you for your brutal honesty and assessment. Keep up the fight, brother.
Back to you, sir. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing. Keep doing it. The more people we wake up, the better off we're going to be.
Amen. Jack Decker, former intelligence analyst, part of a tabletop exercise about 14 years ago that really was, what does it look like 3 cycles from now? What was the left trying to provoke here in America? So with all of this, it can seem a little bit too big And how do we fit into this, right? What can you do right now in a situation where, everybody's trying to do their best to drag us into World War III, but also all of the undermining that has happened of President Trump and the cartels and these criminal organizations, but all the terrorist organizations here in the United States? What can you do? First and foremost, support your local sheriff. I've mentioned this on the show before. Go meet with your local sheriff, with a group of people. Support your local sheriff, support your county prosecutor, but also encourage them that they have the power to take care of some of this. And then I think for us personally, we should be praying this through. So a lot of people prayed before the election. So what can you do? Pray this through. Pray that not only will Donald Trump come into office, but also pray that when he takes office, that there are like-minded people that will restore the republic, not build their own kingdoms. It's a fantastic prayer point. That they'll restore the republic and not build their own kingdoms. And last, a specific prayer point for everyone out there. Pray that the evil would be fully exposed. Every terror network, all the cartels, the jihadi networks that are here in America, and the globalist networks that are here in America and who is part of them, that all of that would be exposed and that we would have the political will to deal with it once and for all. We have the political will to prosecute those that need to be prosecuted, hold accountable those that need to be held accountable for what has really amounted to be traitorous actions. Pray this in. Pray that the networks of human traffickers, child traffickers out there would be exposed. They would be held accountable for their actions. And last but not least, pray that the next generation would be more courageous than us. This is Matt Shea. Thank you for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. He is making this generation the greatest one. Keep up the fight.